right, welcome to the first episode of Mission Bound. Here we are. My name is Tom, and this is
Mike James.
Mike James, baby.
Who?
I don't know who. It's you, baby. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. This podcast is called Mission Bound, and it's all about sports, life, and a little bit of faith mixed in. And Mike, you are a good friend of mine, and man, you have had a very interesting life. You actually had a pro sports career, didn't you?
Yes, played a little bit of basketball, had a...
So hold on, I play a little bit of basketball. I'm a dad, I got an 11-year-old son. I coach 5th grade. I play a little bit of basketball. You did something else. What'd you do?
I mean, I was a professional athlete. I played in the NBA, which makes it a little different. I was a little bit better than the average Joe. And so it was a blessing to be able to have a basketball career.
Wow. How many years did you actually play in the NBA? Because you played more than, what's the average NBA? Like 2 or 3 years and you're out?
Oh, yeah. It's about 3 years. And probably the average year of an NBA ball player is about 3 years.
3 years. And so how many years did you actually play in the NBA?
14.
14 years!
Ooh.
Come on, baby. So now I did a little research on you. You're a friend of mine. And so that's what friends do. We stalk each other in Google.
Yeah.
See, your Google was way more interesting than mine. And I think that's got pros and cons to it. But here's what I learned about you. You played for quite a few teams, didn't you?
Yeah,
in those years?
I was considered a journeyman.
A journeyman.
Yes.
Now, what defines a journeyman?
Play on multiple teams.
Like two is multiple?
No, more. I would say more than 6 teams in your career.
How many teams
you can call yourself a journeyman?
How many teams did you play for?
You know what? At one point in my life, I had over 10 dogs, and I played on more teams than I've had dogs.
You played. Okay, so I like how you brought the dog analogy in. We brought pets and sports together. That's what Mission Bound is.
Yeah, Mission Bound, connecting things.
Absolutely, that's good. So you played on over 10 NBA teams, and you were in the NBA for how many years?
14.
14 years. And what was your favorite team? Because I think there was probably one out of all those over 10 experiences that stood out to you. Which was your favorite team and why?
Detroit Pistons was my favorite team because, one, we won an NBA championship there.
Hold on. Detroit basketball.
Of
I
course,
just had to say that. I spent 10 years in Detroit.
Yeah, only a Detroitie understands what you just said. Anyone else will look at you like, what are you talking about?
That was an absolute insider to Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. But,
we're in Texas now. We're filming this outside of Houston, Texas. Yeah. And that's how we got to know each other. But I actually lived in Detroit when you played on this team. And I watched you on TV local. I don't know if you know that.
And that's
how would you know that? There's no way for you to know.
Of course, until you told me, and
right.
then it's like, okay, that was cool. But Detroit is a place where I grew up as an athlete, grew up as a ball player, and finally really became confident in my skills and honed on them in Detroit.
Wow! And that year that you won an NBA championship, you had some amazing players around you. Talk about that experience a little bit. What was it like? Because NBA only has 300 players.
Yeah.
Of all the basketball players on the planet, the top 300 make it into the NBA. And you were literally at the top of your game that year. What year was that again, by the way?
2004.
Come on, baby. It's not that long ago.
That was an extremely long time.
It's not that long ago. Come on.
Me?
If you know how old I am, which I'm not telling you, it's not that long ago. So 2004, how did it feel, man, that year that you won? And who was on your squad? Talk about it.
Oh, that was an amazing year. Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince. I think, they go down arguably as one of the greatest starting 5 lineups in basketball history.
I personally think they could be the best starting 5.
Yeah.
They each played their role so well that year.
Of course. And that was the thing. No one really had a role. It was just go out there and play. It was more of a family atmosphere. And I think that's the thing.
It's not always like that on teams, is it?
No. And that's the thing that really made me appreciate being in Detroit was not what we were doing on the court, but who we were and how we were responding off of each other off the court. Never felt it in my career.
So if you follow NBA, you see it on TV, you feel the championship. But when you're talking about what happens off the court, tell me about that. Like, what made that team so much different than the other 37 teams you played for? I don't know.
It's a good story is guys would have. I remember. I want to say it was Ben Wallace. His son had a birthday party, like a two-year-old birthday party. But you will see Rasheed Wallace there. You will see Tayshaun Prince there. You will
At a
see
2-year-old's birthday
at
party.
a 2-year-old's birthday party. And so that was the most exciting thing about us, was the fact that we enjoyed each other's company and presence so much, it carried off the basketball court into just everyday living.
Really?
Yeah.
And would you say that's the only team that you've experienced it on that level with?
Oh, are you kidding me? Never experienced it any level, whether it was in the NBA, Europe, whatever league that
Were you about to say the WNBA? WNBA. You've been in the you played in a lot of leagues. Did you play in the WNBA?
I played one-on-one against a few WNBA players, but never really had the WNBA socks on.
How did that go? Just for fun. Did you win, or
I refused to let a great example. My senior year in college, there was a girl, female, Corey Halady. She played in the WNBA. Actually, she got drafted after her senior year to play. And she was on the women's basketball team at Duquesne University.
Okay.
And
which is your alma mater, right?
Yes, which is my alma mater. And we used to train with the girls sometimes and maybe run like the mile. And there was this one time that they were running the mile with us. And I'm in first place with my team against my teammates. And here it is. Corey is like breathing down she's like breathing down.
This girl's going to beat you in the mile.
And I'm sitting there like, I had to almost sprint and almost kill myself just to beat her. And the only thing I was thinking was, I refuse to let this girl beat me.
Wow.
But the whole time, it was like she was she was so close to me.
You could smell her breath on you. She was that close.
I could literally, it was like if it was a dragon, I would have got burned. Like, seriously.
Nice analogy. I like that. So I don't know where we're going with that. That's good, though. That's a lot of fun. But you had such an illustrious career. One thing I think was interesting about your basketball career is most people do the high school thing, the AAU thing. Nowadays, not as much college, but college thing. And then, if they're good enough, they make it in. Your story was just a little different, right? How did you make it into the NBA?
I went to a weekend workout with the Miami Heat, and they've allowed me to.
Who was the coach during that era?
Pat Riley. He was the head coach.
He's no one really knows who he is, right?
Oh man, he's like the president of the Miami Heat now. Like, he's put so many coaches in their position to be successful.
Absolutely.
He was basically like, people looked at him like how they look at like a Greg Popovich. If you have assistant coaches underneath that regime, just because they've been a part of that tenure for however long, you know what? They have to have some type of respect and understanding of what they're doing if they're going to be coached under this.
It's like an elite training camp. If I can work on the team of Pop, or I can work on the team of Riley, then I've got a potential career.
But Jeff Van Gundy comes from under Pat Riley. Stan Van Gundy comes from under.
Which
Pat
one, by
Riley.
the way, Stan? Or which one do you like better of the Van Gundy brothers?
Well, one had bigger shoulders than the other.
That is a true statement.
Because if Stan, his suits used to be kind of square, and you used to look at him like, wow, he has some really broad shoulders. Mm-hmm. But I guess it was the shoulder pads, the padding that was in all his suits used to make him look like.
Are you serious? I thought only women wore those back in the 80s.
No, I think
he would put shoulder pads.
I have no idea what he did, but for some reason.
Is this a fact, or are you just thinking this?
No, for some reason, his suits. His shoulders used to be extremely larger than everyone else's in their suits. But when he had sweatsuits on, his shoulders didn't stand out.
He became Mr. Droopy at that point. Interesting. Ooh, I hope a Van Gundy's listening to this right now. And by the way, if a Van Gundy's listening to this right now, thank you. We appreciate it. But man, that is a great story. Which Van Gundy was that?
That was Stan.
Stan, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So, but do you ever, when you think of Stan Van Gundy, this is what I think of when I see him. I think that he could explode at any given time. Because he would just red face and he'd just blow up.
I think that the hardest part of coaching, a sport is very difficult, coaching different personalities.
Yep.
But then when you've never been in those positions,
I coach fifth grade basketball. I understand.
Yeah, but it's a difference when you've been in that position and you've seen it over 100 times being played, and then you've only watched it as a fan, and so it takes it. You kind of have put more pressure on yourself to see people perform. You kind of put more pressure on other people to perform based off of
So
the lack of
non-playing coaches put more pressure on their players
and themselves.
And themselves than potentially past playing coaches.
I believe so.
Interesting.
I believe so because they've seen it over and over before. If a person have never seen the last 2 minutes of a game and they've never been in that position, and then you tell them to coach that, can you imagine the intensity and the stress level that's on that person that never experienced it, to where a coach that has been in this position, they can at least say, okay, I know what this feels like. I know what that person is going through. So let me help and adjust in certain areas where if a person never been in that position, how can they help you adjust? So it always seemed like coaches like the Tom Thibodeau's, the Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy's.
You actually told me some facts about. We had lunch one time, and you told me some Tom Thibodeau stories. We won't bring him up here, because he might be the new coach for the Knicks, and we may want him on this show someday.
Yeah, of course.
Let's do that.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom. What's up? Go Bulls. And
no,
so,
not
anymore. Don't go Bulls. Go Knicks. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see. Good luck, Tom.
Go wherever you go.
Go where you go. Get that check. So who was your favorite coach to play for? Who's the one that you're like, I love playing for that guy. I would run through a wall for that guy.
Oh, wow. Jim O'Brien was a coach. Yeah, I've played
he was the Pacers coach, Jim O'Brien, wasn't he?
Yes. Okay. I played for Larry Brown, which is a Hall of Fame coach, Pat Riley, who's a Hall of Fame coach.
Let's talk about Larry Brown. He was like, they brought him in for 1 year for the Pistons.
Yeah.
And they won the championship that year. He was just like, he was literally like an all-star coach they brought in, and then he did it, and then he's out. Was that weird? Or am I missing part of the story? Catch me up. I'm sure I'm missing part of the story.
I think that that was Rick Carlisle's team.
Yep.
Before Rick got fired.
Yeah.
And he built that team to where he built the team to where they are.
He did all the hard, not the hard work, but he did, right?
It was almost no different than Mark Jackson building up Golden State Warriors and giving them an identity. And then he gets fired, and then Steve Kerr comes in and wins the championship that first year. So it's like, okay, was it Steve Kerr really that won that championship, or was it all the work that Mark Jackson invested into them to get them to that place?
I see what you're saying. What I thought was interesting, and I don't remember this exactly, but I think I can reference it. Steve Kerr really recognized what Mark Jackson did that year they won. I heard him 2 or 3 times say, hey, Mark Jackson, which rarely happens, right? You don't reference your past coach when you are the coach, right? I think that was one of the interesting. Did you see that at all? Did you hear that? Because I didn't think Steve Kerr came in and went, oh, look, it was me. He was like, hey, I realized I got something really good.
When you have integrity and character about yourself, you never have to put yourself on a high, table. You can always even lower your level of your expectations of who you think you are, and be able to praise someone else and be able to glorify someone else. That's when you don't really have a chip on your own shoulder. And I think that shows a lot of integrity on Steve's behalf, because he's showing, hey, I'm not going to be the reason why they win. I'm not out there.
Yep.
I'm not Stephen Curry making plays. And also, I understand all I can do is put the guys in the right position to be successful. And I understand that there was someone that was here before me that has given them the structure on how to play the game the right way. And all I did was just walk into a great situation. And for him to be able to acknowledge that just shows a lot about his own character, instead of just saying, oh, I did this, I'm the man, oh, Mark Jackson, who's Mark Jackson? Forget about him. The only thing to talk about now is me. And so it just shows who he is as a person, and definitely appreciate when a person is able to give praise where praise is due.
You're right. I have a lot of respect for people that lift other people up instead of lifting themselves up, right? And that's truly what character is all about. When you can build somebody else up. Who was one of those people in your life that built you up instead of trying to take the fame? Was there ever a player or a coach or somebody that said, you know what, Mike, all I want is for you to succeed? Do you remember? Is there anyone like that, or was it like just cutthroat?
My story is different.
Tell us your story.
And because of that, I didn't have no one really in my corner. Everyone basically
no
told
one at
me,
all.
It was always one of those things where, Mike, you're good, but you something you're missing. And so no one really saw the potential of who I can be as an athlete, because they only was able to acknowledge my flaws. And they was always able to tell me what I couldn't do good. You know, instead of appreciating what I bring to what I bring to the game. The interesting thing is I've always called myself a jack of all trades,
Okay.
where I didn't do anything special. I wasn't the fastest. I didn't shoot the best. Wasn't the most athletic, but I was good across the board. So nothing really stood out. They didn't say, man, look how fast he is, or look how high he jumps, or he has a really good jump shot in spite of all the other things that he's capable of doing. So when they looked at me, it was just like, oh, he can shoot. It's okay. He can shoot. He's pretty fast. He's okay athletically.
So you were like at like a B+ all the way across the line.
And so
how did you stay? I mean, let's be real. How did you stay in the league if you felt like you were a B+?
Because you may have been an A+ in one area, but my overall game is those jacks are going to consistently catch your 8s and 9s in other areas, places where you're lacking. So even though I may not have been great in one area, I was good across the board. So when it was time to match up against me, where you lacked, I was still above you. You just probably was a little bit faster than me. You was just probably a little bit more athletic than me. You could shoot just a little bit better than me. But now across the board, I was able to control who you was as an opponent.
You had an illustrious NBA career, and you have been so interesting. I remember when watching you during that year when the Pistons won back in 2004, and you being one of the back guards. It was you and Lindsey Hunter, and they called you guys the Pit Bulls. They gave like those two guards, they gave you guys a name. So when Rip Hamilton and Chauncey were out, you two came in and you were like Pit Bulls. Tell me a little bit, how did you get that name? Like, where did that even show up from?
Just our defensive tenacity. We was putting so much pressure on guards that they was like, man, they like little pit bulls out there, little homeless dogs, stray dogs.
Homeless dogs,
just little stray dogs just salivating, about to bite you and give you rabies out there, just scary.
Oh, I like the visuals you're giving here, man. Rabies and stray dogs.
And so when we would sub into the game,
okay,
they would start like the growling. They'll make like the little growling noises, like
who would do that
in Detroit? So
the crowd or the team
or the team, you know,
they would start growling when you went on the court.
No, like you. Okay, so when that's all you would hear when we're about to sub into the game. It's like two.
Did that motivate you?
We loved it.
We loved it.
That was our moment. That was our thing. Like whenever you heard growling, you knew we was about to come into the game. And so the atmosphere on the defensive end was going to change, and we were a major part of that. And the cool thing was, I used to shoot a lot. Lindsey used to shoot a lot.
Yep.
But Larry Brown was not accepting Lindsey and I coming in the game and shooting because Chauncey and Rip was shooting all the shots. So we used to.
So you had to feed the big men.
So we used to have to figure out how to get points, and the only way that we can get points was let's get steals on defensive end.
Ooh.
You can't. No one can say nothing to you when you get a steal. It's like you could kick the ball out of bounds. They're like, okay, get it back. That was, you almost got a good attempt.
Wow. So being on that championship squad, that obviously helped your career, and that enabled other teams to look at you. And after you left Detroit, where did you go?
I went to Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Yes.
Boy, did that feel like purgatory back then?
Kinda.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not
now.
Not
now.
now. Oh man, they got the freak. You kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
They got one of the greatest players in the game playing right now.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely a little tough back then, but it was still an experience. It was hard leaving Detroit because I didn't want to leave Detroit. I was willing to take a pay cut. I was willing, and they didn't even give me a qualifying offer. They basically said, well, Mike, anybody can do what you did. And so it was okay.
After winning a championship, how did that feel? I mean, just even as you said that to me, I got like, oh man, I felt emotionally what that phrase must have felt like, man. Yeah. How did you go through that?
I mean, I've experienced this a lot in my career. You're only as good as your last game, and also you never know what you have until it's gone.
Yep,
and
that's a true story.
I believe that there's a few teams that lost championships because they traded me the year before. And so
hold on, that's a big statement, Mike.
No,
I like it.
I believe that Detroit that next year in 2005, they lost the championship to San Antonio Spurs because I wasn't on the team.
Wow.
I think
Who else left that team? Were you the only one there?
No. Carlos Williamson was a major part of who we were on the bench.
He was a dirty dog as
Oh,
well.
man,
Yeah.
Carlos Williamson was a monster. Eldon Campbell was another player that left that next year. And so there's a few pieces that left. But what I mean by that is funny because I can remember.
Did Corliss retire or did he just find another spot?
No, he found another team. That next year, I was with I got traded from Milwaukee to Houston. So I just lost in the playoffs in the first round to Dallas in Game 7. My confidence was so high at this moment.
Wow.
I remember calling Chauncey and asked like, man, what's going on with you guys? How are you guys losing to San Antonio right now? I was like, listen, Tony Parker's not that good.
Are you serious?
I said because the year before, it's funny because
you just literally said Tony Parker's not that good.
The year before, I was in France. Before I made it to the NBA, I was playing overseas in France, and I played against Tony in France. Right before the year before he came to the NBA, I played against him in the French league, and I destroyed him. And I was just like, this is the guy that everybody is so highly excited about coming to the NBA. So even when I was a bench warmer and Tony Parker was on the in the game, when he see me, he was like, Mike James, Mike. And so he knew me not from the NBA. He knew me from our experiences in Europe. And so I already knew what type of player he was, and I wasn't impressed.
Wow. So I have a Tony Parker story too, which is nothing about the NBA, but would you like to hear it? It'll take 30 seconds.
Sure.
Is a true story. I'm not making this up. I wished I could. I was a youth pastor. By the way, I used to be in church work and for years, but I went and worked at a church downtown called Lakewood. And it was the year that the All-Star game was down in Houston. So I'm leaving Lakewood to go to lunch, and all the athletes were right there in the hotel right next to the arena. And I see Tony Parker sitting in Starbucks lobby of the hotel that I'm having lunch at. And I follow him into a room because I was just a rabid fan at this point. Not of Tony. I was just like, oh, it's the NBA, play, like, see where this could go. I'm supposed to be working right now. It was that kind of thing, right? And I walk into a press conference, and Tony Parker is up on the stage at a hotel ballroom. There's about 30 reporters in the room. I have no credentials. I have no camera. I don't even have like a little pad of paper and a pencil. I'm just sitting there, right? No. And the whole press conference was about Tony Parker's new music CD that's getting released in France. And they're asking questions. And I'm like, this is too good to be true. So, of course, I'm sitting in the back row, and I throw my hand up in the air, and they call on me. And I literally ask Tony Parker this question. I'm supposed to be at work right now, okay? Tony, if you would ever want to collaborate musically with another NBA artist, who would that artist be and why? He, without batting an eyelash, he just goes, and I'm going to use my best French accent. I would like to do a musical venture with Shaq, because Shaq has good rapping skills, and I think we would make great music together. I laughed so hard, and I got up, and I ran out of the room right after that, and that was my Tony Parker story. I just had to share that with you since we're talking about him. Back to more important things, more relevant things. True story. I don't have any other stories than that, but you brought Tony Parker up, so I wanted to share it with you.
Nice. That was a nice one.
But more importantly, you could beat him on the court, and suddenly the Spurs beat the Pistons the year that you leave, and it's like, what the heck's going on?
And so that's the reason why even the year that Houston traded me that year to Toronto, I believe that that's who I was as an athlete.
So why did you get jumped? Why did you leave Houston? Why did they trade you? And again, going to Milwaukee to Toronto, how did you feel about Toronto? Because,
I mean, when I got traded, well, actually it was Milwaukee to Houston. When I got traded from Milwaukee to Houston, that's when my career I started really gaining momentum and started growing into my own as a basketball player and really believing that I'm just as good as any ball player that steps on the court. And I get traded. It was the first time I've ever been traded, and it hurt.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that I was going to be in Houston. I thought that Houston was going to be home. And when Jeff made that decision to trade me,
Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah.
Non-shoulder pad wearing Van Gundy.
Yeah, the other one.
The other one. Okay.
Yeah, he's the one without no hair, though.
No hair, but no shoulder pads.
No shoulder pads.
Okay, got it. Keep going.
And when he traded me, I can remember driving my daughter. I was driving my daughter to school, and he calls me. He's like, "Mike, we just traded you." I was like, I thought it was a joke.
So the coach called you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, "Well, who'd you trade me for?" He said, "Well, I traded you for Rafe Alston." And I was like, "Rafe Alston? And who else?" Like, I know, I'm pretty sure.
You were like, you better have 3 names after me because it's me, man.
You better have like 2, a lottery draft pick. You better be giving up a first round draft
You better
pick.
got a food truck in there as well.
And he was just like, no, it was just straight up. Sorry, Mike, you're not as good as you thought you was. And I was just like, okay, cool.
Ouch.
And I can remember driving to my daughter's school, and my daughter's is in the back seat. She's like 2, 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, man, when will anybody ever like appreciate me in this game? When would anybody ever like value my worth in this game? And I started getting angry and I started crying. And my daughter looked at me and she said, Daddy's a crybaby.
No,
Daddy's
are you
a
serious?
crybaby. Daddy's a crybaby. And I sat there, and in that moment, I looked at her, and it was almost in her ways. It was almost like she was saying, man, suck it up. Quit being a little wimp. Quit crying, you big baby. Go to Toronto. Go handle your business, and we're going to be right by your side. So quit tripping.
Wow.
And that's how I took that. So when that happened, I looked at her. I said, you know what? You're right, baby. I wiped my eyes. I went down to Toronto, and what I wanted to do in that season was who I believed who I was.
And what were the results of that season in Toronto?
I averaged, that year, I'm the only player in NBA history.
Come on.
I got me at least one record out the deal.
What is your one record?
I didn't get to the Hall of Fame, but I got one record.
Yeah.
I'm the only player in NBA history, the history of the game. Mind you, this game's been going on for a long time.
A minute.
Yes. To average 20 points and go undrafted.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You averaged 20 points in Toronto and you were never drafted.
Yeah, I'm the only player in the history of the game that has ever averaged 20 points and wasn't drafted.
Fist bumps for that. That is amazing. Seriously.
So, but I mean, it was something big to me, especially coming in the way that I came into the game.
Absolutely.
And not having no one really believing in my skills. So I think that was why even Jeff Van Gundy called me arrogant. Jeff Van Gundy called me an arrogant, cocky, conceited. I think it's all about me. And it wasn't that I thought that it was all about me or I thought that I was arrogant, but it was like, man, I'm good and no one is listening to me. So I had to almost scream it.
There's a fine line between arrogance and confidence, isn't there? It's a very thin line, isn't it?
Well, you know what? In order to be successful in sports, there has to be a little bit of arrogance to you, and there has to be a lot of confidence.
You got to feel like you're better than the other guy.
Yeah, you have to. There has to. In order for Russell Westbrook to wear a shirt with his whole nipples ripped out, he has to have some confidence in himself.
I have so many jokes right now.
And a little bit of arrogance as well. Just say it. Like, in order for that to work.
I could never do that. Look, I just want you to know that.
You don't have the arrogance, nor do you have the confidence, I don't believe.
Or other items, too. And not enough push-ups in me.
Your areolas don't stick out well.
I don't have enough push-ups in me to be able to pull that off. And if you're watching the video cast, you'll understand. But there it is. Here's the thing. We're going to keep this. I love this podcast because, again, we're talking a little bit about sports. We're talking about life. Yeah. We're talking a little bit about our faith. And we're going to wrap this up today. And I'm so glad you came on. I'm so glad you came on. I'm glad we're doing this together. And I'm glad that you're able to tell your story because I think your story is so compelling. It's interesting. And for most kids and most adults that wonder how in the world does somebody get into the NBA? I mean, we didn't even share this, but you didn't even get in the NBA until you're like 26 or 7, right?
Yeah, I was an old guy when I finally made it to the NBA.
Yeah, and then you played 13 years. So you were almost 40 years. You were 40 years old still playing the NBA. Is that right? Or 39?
39.
Wow, that's crazy, right? So your story is a story all about perseverance, believing in yourself, and not getting all the breaks, but going and making some of your breaks. And I know that comes because your confidence is your faith, because there's a part of you inside of you that is like, hey, this is who I am. And I know that you've gone on, and we're going to hear more about the journey as we go, and we keep doing Mission Bound together. But if you would just give us like just 10 or 15 seconds about why your faith matters and where you hope it goes.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Those are not just cliche words to me. You know, I stand on what his word says about me. A lot of times people may believe in God, but they don't understand what they have because they don't read his word. They don't understand. They don't study his word, so they don't really understand the power that they have. They don't understand, the control in the earth, on an earthly realm, like what powers we really have. And so, because of that, I've always, even though people were telling me one thing, I wasn't believing them. I was believing God's word on who he says I am and what he says about me and what he says I can attain if I trust in him. And so those were my motivations. When people was like, Mike, you're not good enough. You can't do it. It was just, that was fuel to my fire. It was like, those were wood chips being thrown into the fire. But then when I go back to the word would tell me, I can be greater. I can be all things God says I can be. And then those were the things that held me more than the negative.
So our hope is, as we continue to have these conversations, as we continue to talk about sports and life and a little bit of faith in there, that even if you are, one of these people who grew up in church and you don't go to church anymore, or if you've always had an idea about God, but you've never really explored it, or if you're somebody who maybe really at one point had a very strong faith and life has happened and choices have happened, and you're kind of just trying to figure things out. This podcast, we hope, is an encouragement to you. Just like you said, even during your darkest days, you knew where your hope lied. Your hope wasn't in just you. Your hope wasn't in just what people thought of you. Your hope was in the fact that God still approved of you. And that's a big concept, and it's a game changer when you learn to walk in it on a regular basis. And this is Mission Bound. And Mike, thank you today for telling us your story. And we got some exciting guests coming up in coming weeks. And we want you guys to feel free to just come back on a regular basis, hang out with us, share it with your friends. If you enjoy what we're doing here on Mission Bound, let people know about it. And Mike, anything you want to say to sign us off today?
No, just excited about sharing these moments with you, being able to build a relationship with you, friendship. I've gained a major respect for who you are based off the man of God more than anything else. And then you're a crazy fan of the game of all sports. And because of
except hockey, but we'll get there.
Yeah, except hockey, but that's another story. You know,
our goal is to embrace every sport, but
except hockey.
Alienate all hockey players. That's our goal. Just so you know, we're in Texas, so
yeah. So I'm excited about where this can go, and I believe that not only people will be able to tell their stories, but also there will be a lot of healing. I think that we'll be able to help people with in their lives.
That is fantastic. Hey, we're signing out today. Thank you for hanging out with us. This is Mission Bound with Tom Elmore. My name's Tom Elmore. This is Mike James, former Mike James.
Who?
Tom Elmore. Who are you saying? I don't get it. A lame joke as we end today. Thanks for watching Mission Bound. We'll see you guys later.